Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Recently we talked about the upcoming long-range meta changes. Like, we can all anticipate an RPK nerf is coming. We talked about some solid replacements for that. Today I wanted to do the same, but for the opposite side of things, the close range meta, where clearly we have one standout gun, the Fennec. This thing is dominating close range. It has really ever since Warzone 2 launched. We can anticipate a nerf is coming to the Fennec, and right now we actually have some solid alternatives available in game, even with how good the Fennec is in its current state. But then if it were to see a damage nerf or some kind of other nerf that brings it back more in line with some other options, then we're really going to have some solid alternatives, and I wanted to sort of preview those and give you guys the best setups for those weapons. So of course we want to start here on sim.gg, where we have a handful of different weapons that we can look at the TTK of. I've got the Chimera and the 74U from the rifle category, because these are obviously meant for close range, and as the graph shows, they are very good at close range. I also have some other top tier SMGs though, things like the Vel, the Fennec obviously we have to have here, the WhosImmortal, and then also the Lachmann sub is another one that I really want to focus on here. But we have our chart here, our TTK chart here. Obviously we're looking at 250 health, so the standard Warzone full plate health, and we got the combination shot TTK here. And as you can see, the Fennec is our blue line here, and up close, I mean, through those first 8 meters or so, there's some really close competition. The WhosImmortal right there. The Vel is a little bit slower, and the Kastov 74U is a little bit slower, but everything else is like right there. But then it starts to, you know, take over a little bit. From 8 to 11 meters or 8 to 12 meters, it stands out more. After that first damage drop off though, things become very interesting. So yes, for 12 meters, which is super limited. I mean, if you go in game and you ping 12 meters, that's right up in your face. You're not gonna always have fights like that, especially late game where you could be in a field or you could be in some awkward places like that. But clearly the Fennec is good there. But if it receives a nerf and this TTK drops down some, that's where we really want to focus. But you can see even now in its current state, our orange line here, the Chimera, is right there. Keep in mind this is a rifle, which is especially interesting, is right there. Through those first 12 meters, we're looking at a difference of a 507 millisecond TTK versus 544. That's not super noticeable in game, but then the Chimera takes over all the way up through 45 meters, which is beyond where you're going to be using these guns for close range, right? So clearly the Chimera is already a top tier choice. If the Fennec sees a nerf, it's going to be even more so of a top tier choice, but already that one is working out really well. The Kastov 74U in that mid-range is also super competitive. You can see it actually takes over here at about 13 meters and is better up through about 21, 22 meters, drops off a little bit, and then it's basically right there with the Fennec up through 35 meters, which I would say is about the cap for where you'd want to be using an SMG or a lot of these close range weapons. Obviously the rifles here are a bit more consistent in the mid-range, 35 to like 50 or so, but still, you know, most SMGs are viable through 30 or 40 meters and whatnot. So the 74U, also a very impressive choice. Now the Vel, our purple line here, a little bit slower on the TTK side, especially up close. It's not doing as good, does drop off a little bit more severely. Over range it's solid, but it's still nothing too crazy, so we'll knock that off the list. The WhosImmortal again is like right there up close, but then it also drops off pretty severely and is basically beating the Fennec on every single close range drop off here. Now you might notice that the Lachmann sub, our white line here, you might look at this and say that's not that impressive compared to some of these other choices, but the Lachmann sub, the MP5, is by far the easiest to use in terms of control here. Also, again, we're talking up close right there through the first 8 meters, and it's basically just having that earlier damage drop off than the Fennec over range. However, this is not a crazy drop off. You can see the Fennec at 26 meters is 860, the Lachmann sub is 1009, so you got just over 100 milliseconds there difference. The Fennec sees a nerf though, that's suddenly a lot closer, and the Lachmann is a lot more consistent in terms of its damage per mag, and then also its consistency over some of these, you know, 20, 30, 35 meter fights as well. If we were to look at the average downs per magazine, the Lachmann sub's actually doing a lot better up close, and then over range it's basically better than it throughout compared to the Fennec. It's close, but it's still doing better obviously. And then you look at the 74U and the Chimera, which are the best in terms of downs per mag here, up through about 30 meters, which is also something to take into consideration. Obviously the Fennec, yes, it has that insane TTK, but its damage per mag, because that fire rate is so fast, is absolutely atrocious. Now, a huge difference in the Fennec versus the Lachmann, which to me is what makes up for that TTK difference, is the Fennec here, if we look at the base stats here, 300 millisecond velocity. That means for anything in remotely mid-range area, I'd say 20 to 40 meters, is gonna feel very inconsistent because that velocity, that hit reg, is so slow there. But then we look at the Lachmann sub, and this has a 512 base velocity, which is a lot better. That 200 meter per second velocity, that's significant. So between the Lachmann here, the 74U, and the Chimera, we have three really solid alternatives for the Fennec, not only that are active right now, but are going to be especially good once the Fennec does see a nerf. So let's go through and actually break down the best setups for these guns in particular, with all the best tuning as well. As we get into that, just a reminder, if you're new here, every day I got you covered with all things going on in COD. So if you want to guarantee you're always up to date, feel free to hit that subscribe button, join us on the road to 1 million. And then also, if you guys enjoy this video, if you find it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it as well. Let's try and aim for 2,000 likes on this one. Would really appreciate it if we could hit that. So first up here, let's talk the MP5, the Lachmann sub, obviously. This setup in particular, a little bit different because, as we've talked about recently, for close range, suppressors, because you're not going to show up on the compass as a red dot whatsoever anymore, aren't really super necessary. So I have gone through and changed this setup up to basically make it a lot more aggressive so that we can close the gap for close range fights. Obviously want to be as close and up in the enemy's face as possible. That way we can have that absolute best TTK. And this setup is perfect for that. It's fast, it's aggressive, also the lowest recoil, and I think easiest to use setup out of all these three that we're looking at today. So first up here, we got the TCG grip, which is going to be for better control. And I basically offset the control benefit here with better mobility on the tuning for the better sprint to fire and for the better ADS. 40 round extended mag, pretty basic there, just nice safety net for those squad engagements. 7 milliwatt laser gonna help out with that ADS and that sprint to fire. Yes, you can see the laser, but if you know how to use it, that's not really a huge deal. You shouldn't be pre-aiming like crazy with this. It's a lot of hip fire transition into ADS, so just always keep that in mind. I actually go for the pulsar barrel, which limits some of the under barrels that we have, but that's fine because we can still get away with using a setup here that works well. But this is gonna help out with ADS, hip fire control, which isn't a huge deal, but also movement speed. So this is really going to be solid for an aggressive build. And I tune for the slightly better recoil steadiness just to gain some of that back, but also the slightly faster aim down sight speed. And then I got the lock grip precision, so you can't actually use any of the particular different grips under here. It's a lot of the certain recoil and hip fire based under barrels here that you're only able to use because of this barrel. So lock grip precision I think is really solid. It's going to help out the hip fire accuracy, the recoil steadiness, which is all general control, and the aim walking steadiness as well. And I go ahead and I actually tune that to get that ADS speed back because that is one of the cons here. Then also a faster hip walking speed since this is a sub, and that's oftentimes something you're going to be doing with this. So this setup is very fast, very aggressive, very consistent for close range, and absolutely can rival things like the Fennec and our other choices here. A great SMG choice and a great close range choice moving forward. Now the 74U setup, also a little bit different. We've gone ahead and we've dropped the suppressor off this build as well, just because it's not super necessary. And I actually go ahead and I throw on the R7 stock, and that's going to help out with your mobility. So it's going to make this a rifle, keep in mind, a lot more aggressive, which I really love. Obviously the SMGs are always going to be faster here, so any mobility that we can get out of a rifle setup is going to be clutch. Here I also tune for the better aim walking speed and the better ADS speed, so just helping out even more with that mobility. I also got the Demo X2 grip here. This is meant for control since some of the attachments here do actually take that away, and I go ahead and I tune this for that faster mobility again to sort of give you all solid pros there and the in the end result, if you will. 45 round extended mag, pretty basic. Olay laser, pretty basic as well for that better ADS and sprint to fire, just like the 7 milliwatt. Then I go for the 209 barrel. This again is mobility based. I tune this for basically max ADS speed and then also that better recoil steadiness as well, so it's going to feel nice and consistent. Still very easy to use, especially for close range where the recoil is not a huge deal, but you're going to be able to fly and fry with this thing as well. And then lastly, for the Chimera here, aka the Honey Badger, again I've adjusted the setup a little bit, dropping off that muzzle, and then instead here I actually have a handful of control and then mobility based attachments yet again. So Bruin Flash Grip, gonna be for ADS and sprint to fire, helping out with that mobility. I tune for the better sprint to fire, but also the slightly better steadiness here as well, just to keep it a little bit more consistent. We got the 45 round mag, no surprises there, just again basic extended mag, 7 milliwatt laser, same deal as before as well. I do still go for the Ripper under barrel here just to help maintain that control and make sure this is still very easy to use, whether you're fighting at 10 meters or potentially 40, 45 meters for that close range. Obviously, I tuned for the better stability and the better recoil stabilization here. Then lastly, we got the Vorpal barrel here, which is basically mobility based, but it also gives you slightly better damage range. So that's a super nice pro to have on here. I tuned to maximize that damage range a little bit more, then also for the better recoil setting this. So you get a nice balance of control and speed here, making this thing obviously ridiculously consistent. And as we saw, its TTK can hold its own even now against the Fennec. So a great close range choice. And that being said, that's going to wrap things up for this one. That is the next close range meta in terms of what guns you want to look out for, but also what's working really well right now. If you guys enjoyed the video, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you guys are new here, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications. That way you can always guarantee you're up to date with all things going on in the world of COD. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.